Another very important technique that we use all the time in React development is conditional rendering. So in this video and the next two, we will talk about 3 ways of rendering some JSX or even an entire component based on a condition. And starting in this lecture with the AND operator. So remember how way back we created this isOpen variable right here in the footer. So basically this variable tells us if currently the restaurant is open, which happens when the current hour is between 12 and 22. And so now what we want to do is to basically only render something here inside of the footer if the restaurant is currently open. And so that's what conditional rendering is all about. So it's basically rendering some piece of the UI, no matter if that's a piece of JSX or if it's an entire component, based on a certain condition. And again, in this case, the condition is simply whether the restaurant is currently open or not. So let's actually get rid of all of this. And then here, since we are going to use JavaScript, let's enter JavaScript mode using this curly braces once more. So as I mentioned initially, in this lecture, we're going to do conditional rendering with the AND operator. And that works because of short circuiting. Now, in case you're not sure what short circuiting means and how it works with the AND operator, then please go back to the previous section where I have one entire lecture about that. But in a nutshell, if we have some true or some truthy value, such as isOpen, and if we then use the AND operator, then the second part of the AND operator, so whatever comes here, will be returned in case that the condition is true. So let's just write something very simple here. Just open. So just like this. And let's check it out. And indeed, it says open. And so again, the reason for that is the way the AND operator works. So isOpen is currently true, as we can see from this console.log here. And so then, since this is true, the second part of the AND operator will be returned. Now, let's just change this here to say that the restaurant open at 20 hours. Then here we get false. And then down here, well, we basically get nothing. And so that is the short circuiting in action. So short circuiting means that if this condition, so if this value here is false or falsy, then the second part of the operation will not even be executed. So JavaScript will not even look at this, and then nothing is rendered. So the result here is then true, which is the result of this, but React doesn't actually render true or false into the DOM. And so that's why this works. So let me show that to you actually here very quick. So if we write false here, so a Boolean value, then you see it's not showing up here. And the same is true for true. So that's not there. Okay, let's just write something a bit nicer here, like we're open until, and then here let's read the close hour and then format it just a little bit. Come visit us or order online. And since we're already here, let's also create this small button that we have down here. All right, now here we cannot see anything, so let's put the open hour back so that our restaurant is actually open. Nice. And now let's wrap this entire thing here into a div. So div with the class name of order. Then let's wrap this here. And then create a button with the class name of btn order. And then we get all the styles from the style sheet that we included at the beginning. Beautiful. Now just notice here that we're doing exactly what we learned in the lecture about the rules of JSX. And in particular, we are inside this JavaScript mode here returning some more JSX, which is perfectly fine. As we learned, in the end, this is just a JavaScript expression as well. And so this is why this thing works. Nice. So this is a good use case of conditional rendering. Let's check out another one. So let's say that we only want to render this menu here in case that we actually have some pizzas. So first of all, let's actually get, actually it's here. So basically we only want to render this list in case that we have some pizzas. So to start, let's actually create a new variable here quickly, which I will call pizzas, and I will set it equal to pizza data. And then here, let's use that. And then let's, or pizzas, and then let's do conditional rendering again. So I will first start in a way that's not really going to work, but let's roll with it for now. So we can again do pizzas, and then, well, then this. So let's cut that, paste it here, and there we go. And so our pizzas are still here because pizzas is a truthy value. And so this behavior of the AND operator does not only work for true and false values, but also for truthy and falsy values. Now the problem with this is that, let's say that actually we have no pizzas. So pizzas equals an empty array. Well then, it actually appears as though this is empty here, but if we inspect, we see that the list itself should still be there. So you see, we have here the empty list. So it's empty because, of course, we have no pizzas to loop over, but the UL is still here. So this here is still being rendered. And that's because an empty array is still a truthy value. So what we need to do here is to basically check for the length of this array. So let's do num pizzas equal pizzas dot length. All right, and so now when there are no pizzas, then this will become 0. And so if we check based on this, then this is now a falsy value. And so if it's false, then this here will not get rendered. So let's see what happens then. And now we get this weird 0. Why is that? Well, it's because of short circuiting again. So when the AND operator short circuits, it will simply not evaluate this part, but instead the result of the operation will become this one. So this is 0, and so therefore that's what we get in the UI. That didn't happen down here, because as I mentioned, React will not render true or false value, but it will happily render a 0, and so that's why we get a 0. So as a conclusion, we should never ever have this here as a number. So we should always try to have a true or false condition here. So let's do this. If there are more than 0 pizzas, do this, and if not, well, then don't render anything. And so this here is the result that we were looking for. Let's put it back just to see. And then our pizzas are actually back. Nice. Now, because of this behavior here that I just showed you, so that sometimes a 0 can show up in the UI, many people say that we should actually never use the AND operator to do conditional rendering. Now, I don't really agree with that, because sometimes it's nice to very quickly do some conditional rendering with this, but also usually I do prefer the ternary operator to do conditional rendering. And so that operator is up next in the next lecture.